A thunderclap rattled the window as rain poured down like a broken pipe. I was checking my rain barrels, pleased to see them filling nicely, when a violation notice from the HOA landed in my mailbox, claiming they were an eyesore to the neighborhood's natural aesthetic. I stared at the letter, then at my barrels tucked behind a privacy fence, invisible unless someone went snooping. Someone like Linda Harper, the HOA president who once fined a guy for wind chimes that were too melodic. I wasn't sure whether to laugh, cry, or add another barrel just to mess with her. It all started innocently. My wife and I moved to Maple Grove for the quiet tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and a short commute to my job as a civil engineer. But behind the tidy lawns and cozy porches lurked a board of rule-obsessed suburban gatekeepers, led by Linda, the queen of compliance and self-proclaimed guardian of neighborhood charm. After a dry spell, I installed rain barrels to water my garden. It was eco-friendly, legal, and smart, especially since our area flooded during heavy rains. I picked subtle gray barrels, hid them behind the garage, and added a trellis with VY nests for camouflage. Unless you had a drone or vendetta, you'd never notice them. But Linda had a gift for spotting issues where none existed. The notice arrived after a big storm when most folks were mopping up backyard puddles. I was in a great mood. My barrels had saved my garden from becoming a swamp. Then I saw the envelope, stamped with the HOA's smug logo, a house wrapped in red tape. It accused me of installing unapproved water storage in a visible spot, citing some vague rule that, when I checked, didn't even mention barrels. I called Linda to clear things up. She answered with that fake sweet tone that set my teeth on edge. Mark, even if the city allows it, the HOA has higher standards of beauty. Your barrels disrupt our visual harmony. You have 10 days to remove them. Click. I stood there, phone in hand, stunned. Visual harmony? These were containers saving water that would otherwise clog the storm drains and turn the community lawn into mush. Now I was being fined because my green efforts didn't fit Linda's style guide. I tried reasoning with the HOA. I sent an appeal with photos proving the barrels were hidden, plus city environmental rebates and a diagram showing how my setup eased flooding, a real issue here. But the board shot it down in 2 days. Linda's word was law, and that word was remove. Frustrated, I dug deeper and found something juicy. The community center, Linda's pride and joy for wine nights and her husband's card games, had an outdated drainage system. It sat at the neighborhood's lowest point, only staying dry because folks like me managed runoff. If someone stopped or nudged water toward its center, might get a lesson in real water mismanagement. The idea was petty but tempting. I ran it by my college buddy, Jake, a stormwater consultant. He laughed so hard he nearly spilled his coffee. Dude, you could reroute a river if you wanted. Why not a little runoff? That's when it hit me. I could legally redirect water on my property, and even revive an old irrigation channel that once fed a now-defunct community garden near the center. It wasn't just about payback, it was about exposing Linda's obsession with looks over function. She'd rather have fake swans than let me save water. If logic wouldn't win, maybe irony would. I planned carefully. I am an engineer, after all. I studied HOA bylaws, city codes, property lines, even old landscaping maps. Everything had to be legal or buried deep enough to avoid suspicion. Meanwhile, Linda upped her game, sending compliance officers to patrol, volunteers in bright vests measuring grass and snapping photos of trash cans. A guy named Carl, tried climbing my fence for a barrel shot. My motion sensor sprinkler nailed him. The photo hit the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption "Carl's Water Adventure." It got 130 likes in an hour. Even under pressure, I played it cool. I removed 1 barrel and added a fake trellis to throw them off while building what I called my passive-aggressive plumbing network. GRAVY tie-fed lines, hidden outlets, and clever redirects, all in VY-sible. A week later, another storm hit. Thunder roared, water rushed, and the community center's lights flickered, then died. Its basement pump gave up and water seeped through vents and doors, soaking the carpets where Linda had just held a fundraiser. I stood on my porch, dry as a bone, sipping coffee from a mug labeled Certified Drain Master, watching nature and a bit of clever routing do their work. The next morning was pure comedy if you could stomach wet rugs. I strolled past the center, checking my mail. Linda was there, arms flailing, yelling at 2 drenched workers. Fans roared, mildew stank, and a water stain marked the sidewalk like nature's signature. I didn't linger or smirk. Well, Not until I was out of sight. That was just phase 1. My system could do more, and another storm was coming. Jake showed up with donuts, grinning like he'd won a bet. To the Storm Lord, he toasted. Where VYE'd my camera footage, Carl's second failed spy mission, the center's lights blinking out 0 EVY Denke of tampering, just GRAVY tie and a guy who reads too many drainage manuals. The HOA sent an email blaming unforeseen infrastructure issues and unusual rain. I laughed. If they thought that storm was odd, they weren't ready for the week of rain forecast. I stayed ahead of Linda's snooping. I hid my system's endpoints with potted plants, added fake downspouts to mislead her, and scattered yard debris to look sloppy. She took the bait, sending another letter about suspected drainage violations, not even a real rule. She demanded to inspect my yard. I posted a note on my gate. No access without a warrant. HOA isn't the law. She couldn't touch me legally, so she doubled patrols. Carl came by daily. I added floodlights and a barking dog speaker. My yard became Fort Knox with grass. Another storm hit. I tweaked the flow not much, just enough to keep the center's carpet soggy. A plumber's van showed up. Linda was arguing with a board member, pointing at my house. They had no proof the real trick was buried under a flower bed. That night, Jake and I ate pizza and tweaked the system, joking about building a tactical irrigation weapon. The neighborhood buzzed. People noticed my dry yard versus the center's swamp. One called me a rain guru. Another asked about my magic soil. Linda heard it all and sent a bulletin warning against tampering with runoff. It was like a dictator scolding peasants for liking the mud. Linda's problem? She couldn't prove anything. Every time she got close, she saw me watering tomatoes, sipping lemonade. She couldn't report what she couldn't find, and pushing too hard would break laws. I wasn't just winning, I was rewriting the game. This wasn't about flooding a building anymore, it was about exposing an HOA that valued looks over community. And the best part? I was doing it with water, uncontrollable, unpredictable water. A bigger storm loomed, promising to dwarf the last. My system was primed, pipes tested, cameras set. If the HOA thought the last flood was bad, they were about to learn what happens when you mess with a guy who designs flood control for a levying. By the third storm, the community center was a wreck. The HOA had to hold an emergency meeting in a neighbor's garage. The mildew was too strong. Carpet was gone, fans screamed, and a dumpster held ruined chairs and soggy files. I bit my lip to hide a grin. My system was flawless, redirecting runoff to the center's low point. It wasn't sabotage, just nature following a new path. Linda was unraveling, pacing and snapping at board members while vying moisture sensors. They blamed bad luck or raccoons, anything but their own neglected drains. I could have explained, but why ruin the fun? That night, an anonymous note hit my mailbox. Keep it up. Sparked an idea. I wasn't the only one fed up. If I kept the pressure on, others might speak out. The HOA thrived on silence. It was time to stir things up. I chatted with neighbors casually, asking about their HOA gripes. Stories flooded in, fines for kids' chalk drawings, warnings for early Christmas lights. People were done. With the center a mess, their patience was shot. Linda tried banning yard work during storms, claiming it altered drainage. It was laughable and unenforceable. She stuck a shaky camera on a pole to watch my yard. I planted a sunflower to block it. The board called a community forum to regain control, but mold forced it to a school cafeteria. The irony was rich and HOA obsessed with perfection, begging for space. I went out of curiosity. The room was packed tense. Linda gave a speech about unity, then pushed for stricter fines and cameras. People fidgeted. Then Sarah, a retired librarian, stood up. Why punish us instead of fixing your own drains? She asked. Linda faltered. More joined Ina guy fined for a porch step. A couple denied a wheelchair ramp. The room turned. A dad yelled, "Is unity why you hassle me over a sandbox?" Laughter erupted. Linda's smile cracked. I stayed quiet, watching. My plan had worked, not just the water, but the spark. People saw the HOA's pettiness clearly now. The next day, a note with 3 signatures asked me to run for the board. Me, the barrel guy. I laughed, but they meant it. Linda wasn't done. She needed one more fight, so I gave her one more storm. The forecast promised a deluge. I tweaked my system for max flow, keeping it legal. Friday night, rain pounded. My channels hummed and the center blacked out again. By morning it was chaos, caution tape, vacuums, a worker holding soggy drywall. Linda was gone, her absence loud. Monday she struck back, sending a legal letter accusing me of malicious water redirection and environmental warfare. I nearly choked laughing. Jake grinned. She's desperate. I was ready with binders of maps, codes, and a city engineer's letter praising my setup. The HOA set an emergency meeting in a library hall. The center was too moldy. Linda stormed in with blurry photos and a sketch of my suspicious drains. She called me a saboteur. I stood, opened my binder, and laid out the law, city codes allowing redirection, flood guidelines encouraging it, my system's legality. I showed proof the center's flooding predated my barrels tied to their own bad drains. Then a board member, Tom, dropped a bomb. The city was probing the center for illegal drain covers Linda had ordered for aesthetics. She froze. The room stared. Silence. The board dropped her claims, declared my system legal, and launched an ethics probe into Linda. She fled mid-vote, heels echoing. Neighbors cheered me that night with cookies and wine. Some asked for drainage tips. Linda had overreached, and the board was shifting. 2 weeks later, a monster storm hit. My yard stayed dry, the center didn't. Water ruined new fixes, the sump pump died. A city notice condemned it for remediation. Linda stood in the lot silent, then drove off. Rumors said she was selling her house, blaming toxic neighbors. The board acted fast, naming Tom interim president. He paused fines and opened elections. Neighbors pushed me to run. I hesitated but agreed, not for power but for sense. I won easily as environmental officer. We rewrote rules, banned illegal policies, and rebuilt the center with proper drains and rain catchers. A sign honored common sense. Linda's house sold. I saw her once at a gas station. Words, just a glance. I didn't care. I'd won something better, a community that laughed in the rain. At my rain barrel bash, we celebrated with dragon-shaped barrels and a waterslide fed by runoff. Neighbors shared tools, fixed porches, and grew gardens. The HOA was ours now, fair, practical. As rain fell that night, my system hummed, and I sipped tea, knowing we were ready for whatever came next.